When was the last time you looked in the mirror and actually liked the person staring back at you, not just your appearance, but your choices, your habits, and your life? The truth is, too many people can't answer that question honestly, and that's why they feel empty no matter how much love they get from others. If the relationship you have with yourself is broken, nothing else in your life will ever feel right, resulting in a feeling that, even amidst success, something fundamental is missing. But what if you could build a relationship with yourself so strong that it becomes the unshakable foundation of your happiness and peace? In this guide, you are going to learn exactly how to love yourself more than anyone else. Not in a way that closes you off from the world, but in a way that makes you stronger, calmer, and more resilient. So, if you're ready to stop abandoning yourself and finally stop accepting less than you deserve from everyone else, stay with me on this journey. And before we begin, if this is the journey you've been waiting for, your first step of commitment starts now. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell, as every video is a tool to strengthen your mind and spirit. Leave a like on this video so the algorithm shows it to more people who need this message, and comment "I choose myself" below to solidify your decision to put yourself first. Finally, share this with someone you love who may have forgotten their own worth. 1. The architecture of a loving relationship with yourself. How does one begin to construct a relationship of genuine, durable love with oneself? The journey begins not with grand gestures, but with a simple, introspective question. When was the last time you felt a quiet, internal pride simply for being who you are, independent of what you've achieved? Most people rarely, if ever, pause to reflect on this. It is for this very reason that they find themselves on an endless, exhausting chase for love and approval from everyone else, while the most vital relationship of their lives, the one they have with themselves, is left neglected and in ruins. It's a cruel paradox. No matter where you go, what you do, or who you're with, you are the one person you can never escape. You always take yourself with you. If that internal companionship is toxic, critical, and unloving, then every experience, no matter how beautiful, will be tainted by it. The truth is, self-love is not an accidental event that magically appears when life is going your way. It is a deliberate construction, a structure you must choose to build intentionally, with the same effort, attention, and consistency you would dedicate to any relationship you truly value. Think for a moment about how you treat the people you care for most deeply. You listen to them with genuine attention. You show them respect, even when you disagree. You offer them patience when they are struggling, and you forgive their mistakes without holding on to resentment. Now ask yourself, with brutal honesty, do you give yourself that same level of care and compassion? The hard reality is that most people speak to themselves with a harshness they would never inflict upon someone they love. They replay their failures on an endless mental loop, call themselves names when they make a mistake, and hold themselves to impossible standards. To build this relationship, the first change must occur in your internal dialogue. You must replace the harsh self-judgment of, "I can't believe I did that," with the growth-oriented perspective of, "I'm learning and improving." You must substitute the limiting belief, "I'm not good enough," with the patient affirmation, "I'm still becoming the person I want to be." Your mind believes the words you repeat. However, self-love transcends talk. It is embodied in actions, especially in keeping the promises you make to yourself. Imagine a friend who constantly broke their word. You wouldn't trust them. Yet, many of us do this to ourselves, saying we'll exercise and then skipping it, or vowing to avoid a toxic person only to let them back in. Every broken promise chips away at self-respect. You rebuild it by keeping even the smallest commitments, getting up when you said you would, finishing the task you started, and honoring your boundaries. Another pillar is spending intentional time alone, not distracted by your phone, but truly present with yourself. This can be uncomfortable because in solitude, There is nowhere to hide from your thoughts, but you cannot love someone you do not truly know, and you cannot know yourself if you never spend time with yourself. Finally, forgiveness is essential. This means consciously letting go of the mistakes you've been punishing yourself for. Forgiveness isn't pretending the mistakes were okay. It's deciding they no longer get to control you. 2. The foundation of happiness. Why self-love comes first. What if I told you that every moment of happiness you've ever felt has been filtered through the way you see yourself? Think about it. Two people can have the exact same life circumstances, yet one feels deeply content while the other feels constantly unfulfilled. The difference isn't luck, it's self-love. Without it, happiness is always temporary, fragile, and dependent on something or someone outside of you. We're often told that happiness comes from achievements, relationships, or possessions. Get the promotion, find the perfect partner, buy the dream home, and then you'll finally feel complete. And yes, these things can bring excitement, but without self-love, the feeling fades, and you're left chasing the next big thing, hoping it will finally fill the gap. It never does. Why? Because happiness built on external things is like building a house on sand. The moment those things change, and they always do, the entire structure collapses. Self-love is the solid ground. It's the foundation that makes happiness stable. When you value yourself, you stop looking for permission to feel good about your life. You stop waiting for others to validate your worth before you allow yourself to be happy. It's like turning on a light inside you that no one else can switch off. Even when life gets hard, you still have that inner stability, that quiet confidence that you are enough. But building self-love requires unlearning years of conditioning. From an early age, many of us are taught that our worth depends on our performance, our appearance, or how much we please others. Over time, this creates a dangerous habit. We start outsourcing our happiness. We forget that we have the power to give it to ourselves without anyone's approval. True happiness begins when you reverse this pattern. It's when you can sit alone and still feel whole, and receive love from others, but not depend on it to survive emotionally. Self-love doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you free. When happiness comes from this internal wellspring, everything else in life improves. Your relationships become healthier, your work more fulfilling, and your free time richer because you're actually enjoying being you. 3. The art of boundaries. Protecting your peace without guilt. Why is it that the moment we try to protect our time, our energy, or our peace, we start feeling guilty? Why do so many of us say yes when every part of us is screaming no? The answer is uncomfortable. We've been trained to believe that putting ourselves first is selfish. And so we sacrifice our well-being for the comfort of others, thinking it makes us good people, when in reality, it just makes us exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from ourselves. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors. Doors that you have the right to open and close based on what is healthy for you. Without them, life becomes chaotic. People start expecting more than you can give, and you start giving more than you can handle. Over time, you lose your sense of self. You become so used to meeting everyone else's needs that you forget you have your own. And here's the cruel part. The more you give without boundaries, the less people value what you give. The friend who's always available, the co-worker who never says no, they are rarely respected more. In fact, they're often taken for granted. Boundaries don't push people away. They teach people how to treat you. The guilt you feel when setting a boundary isn't proof that you're doing something wrong. It's proof that you're breaking an old pattern. That uncomfortable feeling is just your mind adjusting to a new way of living. You've been programmed to believe your worth comes from how much you give. So when you start protecting yourself, it feels like you're taking something away. But in reality, you're giving them something far more valuable, the best version of you, not the drained, resentful one. Setting boundaries also means being okay with disappointing people. You cannot live a life of self-respect and please everyone. At the same time, if someone's respect for you depends on you overextending yourself, then it's not real respect. It's dependence and control. A person who truly cares about you will not punish you for having limits. Practical boundaries can be as simple as not answering calls after a certain hour or saying no to events that drain you. The key is consistency. A boundary you constantly break isn't a boundary, it's a suggestion. 4. The protective. No. The essential tool for energy preservation. When was the last time you said no without giving an excuse, without apologizing, without feeling like you had to justify it? For most people, that's rare. We live in a culture that celebrates busyness and equates constant availability with value. But here's the reality. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you're saying no to yourself. And over time, that depleted energy and silent resentment will cost you more than you realize. Saying no isn't about rejecting people. It's about protecting your most precious resource, your energy. You can always make more money, but once your energy is gone, so is your ability to show up fully in life. Without it, you can't create, connect, or even enjoy the things you've worked so hard for. Energy is your life force, and if you don't guard it fiercely, the world will drain it without hesitation. The problem is, most people think that saying no will make them selfish or rude. They fear being labeled as difficult or uncaring. But here's the truth. People who truly respect you will also respect your no. It's only the ones who benefit from your lack of boundaries who will try to make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. And that reaction is the clearest sign that the no was necessary. Think of your energy like a bank account. Every commitment is a withdrawal. If you never say no, you'll eventually run into emotional bankruptcy. The symptoms: burnout, resentment, loss of motivation, even physical illness. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote about guarding the inner citadel, the fortress of your mind and soul. Not every battle is worth fighting. Saying no is your way of closing the gate before an unnecessary siege drains your strength. Before you agree to anything, pause and ask yourself, does this align with my priorities? Will this energize me or drain me? If I say yes, what will I have to say no to in return? Over time, you realize the world doesn't end when you say no. The people who value you adjust, the ones who don't fade away, making room for healthier relationships. 5. The liberation of letting go, releasing those who don't see your value. How many times have you stayed in someone's life long after they stopped treating you like you matter? How many times have you made excuses for their behavior, convinced yourself they'll change, or told yourself that maybe you're just expecting too much? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every moment you spend holding on to people who don't value you is a moment you're stealing from yourself. Letting go is hard, not because we don't know the person is bad for us, but because our hearts get attached to the idea of them, to the memories, to the potential, to the way they made us feel once upon a time. We hold on, hoping they'll return to that version of themselves, ignoring the reality that the present version is nothing like it. This is where self-love must collide with self-respect, because you can't claim to value yourself while you continue to invest in someone who has shown through their actions that they do not. The truth is, when someone truly values you, you don't have to question it. You don't have to decode mixed signals, chase them for attention, or shrink yourself to fit into their comfort zone. Their respect and care are consistent. Anything less is not love. It's tolerance, convenience, or habit. The Stoics understood detachment. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from the loss itself, but from our attachment to the illusion of control over it. We believe that if we just try harder, we can make someone see our worth. But your worth is not up for negotiation. It exists whether someone else recognizes it or not. When you let go, it's not about anger. It's about creating space for relationships that nourish you instead of draining you. It's about having the energy to pour into your own growth, joy, and peace. You can love someone deeply and still recognize they're not good for you. You can be grateful for what they taught you and still walk away. Self-love means knowing when to stop watering a dead plant, no matter how beautiful it once was. In the silence that follows their departure, you start to hear yourself again. You'll know you've truly let go when you stop needing closure from them because you've given it to yourself. 6. Taming the inner voice. How to silence your inner critic. What if I told you that the loudest, most damaging voice you'll ever hear isn't from an enemy or a rival? It's from you. That voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, that you're going to fail, that you shouldn't even bother trying. That's your inner critic. And if you don't learn to manage it, it will sabotage every step forward you try to take. The strange thing is that the inner critic often sounds like it's trying to help. It uses words like be realistic or don't embarrass yourself or you're not ready yet. But underneath those phrases is fear. Fear of change, fear of risk, fear of the unknown. That voice convinces you to stay small, to play it safe, to live in a box where nothing new can hurt you, but also where nothing new can grow you. The Stoics had a different approach. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Your inner critic is not an outside force. It's part of your mind. And if you have power over your mind, then you have power over it. The problem is, most of us never challenge it. We take its words as truth instead of opinion. One of the most powerful steps is to separate yourself from your thoughts. Imagine them as clouds passing in the sky. You're not the clouds, you're the sky itself. The critic may appear, but you don't have to hold on to it. Silencing your inner critic doesn't mean pretending it's not there. Trying to ignore it can make it louder. Instead, you confront it. You ask, is this thought actually true? Is there proof? Or is this just fear? Wearing the mask of logic. More often than not, its words collapse under the weight of evidence. It's also important to recognize where your critic learned its voice. Sometimes it's the echo of a parent's harsh words, a teacher's doubt, or a past failure. When you understand its origins, you stop taking it so personally. You see it as a learned pattern, not an absolute truth. Replace self-criticism with self-instruction. Instead of, I can't do this, shift to, I don't know how to do this yet, but I can learn. 7. The role of self-care in building self-worth. When was the last time you truly took care of yourself? Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. This isn't about the bare minimum of eating when you're hungry or sleeping when you're tired, but about the conscious and deliberate act of treating yourself like someone worth protecting, worth investing in, and worth loving. For too many people, the concept of self-care has been reduced to a shallow marketing slogan. Something you do on an occasional spa day or as a last resort when you're already burned out. But real self-care is so much deeper. It's not an occasional treat. It's a daily declaration of your own worth. Here's the truth. You cannot have genuine self-worth without consistent self-care. The two are inseparable. When you consistently neglect your own needs, pushing through exhaustion, eating poorly, ignoring your mental health, you send yourself a quiet, subconscious message. I'm not a priority. And over time, that message becomes a core belief. You start to accept less from others because you've already accepted less from yourself. But when you consistently care for yourself, when you feed your body nourishing food, move it with intention, rest it fully, feed your mind with knowledge, and protect your emotional space, you reinforce a different, more powerful belief. I matter. My well-being matters. My life matters. Real self-care isn't always glamorous or easy. Sometimes it means going to bed earlier instead of scrolling on your phone until 2 a.m. Sometimes it's cooking a healthy meal when you're tired instead of ordering fast food. And sometimes It's having the uncomfortable conversations necessary to protect your mental space. One of the most powerful aspects of self-care is that it builds trust with yourself. Every time you make a choice that benefits your long-term well-being over short-term pleasure, you are proving to yourself that you can be counted on. And self-trust is one of the deepest foundations of self-worth. Think of self-care as an investment account. Every healthy meal, every workout, every good night's sleep, every moment of journaling, these are deposits. They accumulate over time, compounding into confidence, resilience, and an unshakable sense of self-respect. 8. Learning to enjoy your own company. When was the last time you were alone and actually enjoyed it? Not distracted by your phone, not numbing the silence with background noise, not rushing to fill the space with someone else's presence, but truly, peacefully alone and fully comfortable in your own skin. For many people, the very idea of being alone feels uncomfortable, even frightening. They treat solitude like a punishment, something to be escaped as quickly as possible. But the truth is, learning to enjoy your own company is one of the greatest forms of freedom you can ever experience. When you depend on constant company or validation from others to feel okay, you have given away your emotional stability. You have made your peace conditional on something you can't control, the attention, approval, or presence of other people. But when you know how to be with yourself, to genuinely appreciate your own thoughts and your own presence, you take back that control. Your happiness stops being tied to the actions of others. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." The Stoics understood that the richest source of peace is found not in a physical location, but in the ability to be still with yourself. Enjoying your own company isn't about isolation or rejecting human connection. It's about removing the neediness that makes you cling to others out of fear, rather than choosing to be with them out of genuine desire. When you learn to be alone without feeling lonely, your relationships transform. You stop asking people to fill the gaps in your self-worth. The process starts small. It might mean going for a walk without headphones, simply listening to your thoughts. It might mean taking yourself out for a meal and resisting the urge to scroll endlessly on your phone. At first, it might feel strange, but growth always feels awkward before it feels natural. Time alone isn't a void, it's a canvas. You can use it to reflect, to plan, to create, or simply to rest, reconnecting with yourself and gaining clarity that is impossible to find in the noise of the world. 9. Releasing the need for external validation. Why do we let the opinions of others have so much power over us? Why can a single compliment make our day, yet a single criticism can ruin our week? If you've ever found yourself replaying someone's negative comment in your head or constantly checking your phone to see who liked your post, you already know the trap of external validation. It feels good in the moment, like a quick hit of dopamine, but it also makes you dependent, and dependency is weakness. Here's the harsh truth. If your self-worth is built on the approval of others, you're building your house on sand. The moment their opinions change, and they will, your confidence crumbles. One day they love you, the next they criticize you, and your emotional state swings with their moods. That's not freedom, that's emotional slavery. Epictetus said, "If you wish to be free, do not concern yourself with what others think of you." This isn't about arrogance, it's about recognizing that other people's opinions are just that, opinions. They are shaped by their own experiences, biases, moods, and insecurities, none of which have the authority to define your worth. When you live for external validation, you're handing over the keys to your happiness. The first step in releasing this need is to identify where it shows up in your life. Maybe it's in the way you dress, not for yourself, but chasing compliments. Maybe it's the career you chose because it sounded impressive to others, even if it leaves you empty. Once you recognize these patterns, you can begin replacing them with self-generated validation. This means measuring your worth by your own standards, by the promises you keep to yourself, by the values you live by your integrity. One powerful exercise is to detach your actions from their reception. Ask yourself, would I still be proud of this if no one ever saw it? If the answer is yes, you are on the right track. You're doing it for you, not for the applause. 10. How? To forgive yourself and move forward. How many nights have you stayed awake replaying your mistakes like a broken record? How many times have you whispered to yourself, if only I could go back and do it differently? We all carry moments we wish we could erase, things said in anger, opportunities not taken, choices made from fear instead of courage. And yet, no matter how much we wish it, the past doesn't change. What we can change is how we relate to it. Self-forgiveness is one of the hardest. Skills to master, not because it's complicated, but because it requires facing yourself without excuses. It means looking directly at your flaws and your failures, not to punish yourself further, but to release yourself from the prison of constant self-judgment. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote that the greatest obstacle to living is the expectation of tomorrow, which robs us of today. When you spend your life trapped in yesterday's mistakes, you rob yourself of today's potential. Holding on to guilt can feel strangely productive, as if by feeling bad, we are somehow atoning for what we did. But guilt doesn't fix the past. It only chains us to a moment that no longer exists. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is not about pretending the mistake didn't happen. It's about learning the lesson so deeply that you never need to repeat it. The process starts with honesty. You acknowledge the wrong, you accept your role in it, and you face the discomfort head-on. The next step is self-compassion. You wouldn't tell a friend they are a complete failure every day and expect them to thrive, yet we do this to ourselves constantly. Self-compassion means speaking to yourself as you would to someone you care about who is trying and learning. Forgiveness also requires action. If you hurt someone, make amends where possible. This transforms forgiveness from a passive feeling into an active principle. Perhaps the hardest part is letting go of the identity the mistake gave you. We sometimes hold on to guilt because it becomes familiar, but you are not a single event. The pen is still in your hand, and you are still writing the story. 11. Building confidence through consistent action. What if I told you that confidence isn't something you're born with, and it's not something you magically find one day? What if it's something you build brick by brick through the small, sometimes boring actions you take every single day? The truth is, the people you admire for their confidence aren't fearless superheroes. They are simply people who have stacked up enough proof over time that they can trust themselves to show up and do the work. The problem is most people wait to feel confident before they act. They think, once I feel ready, then I'll go for it. But that's not how it works. You don't act because you feel confident. You feel confident because you acted. Confidence is the side effect of keeping promises to yourself. Every time you say, I'm going to do this, and then you follow through, you place another brick in the foundation of your self-belief. Think about it like this. Each action you take is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. When you avoid challenges or break your own commitments, you cast a vote for doubt and insecurity. But when you step forward, even in discomfort, you cast a vote for confidence. And over time, the majority wins. Your identity shifts. You no longer see yourself as someone who tries. You see yourself as someone who does. This doesn't mean you will succeed at everything. In fact, some of your most powerful growth will come from failing and realizing you can survive it. Every time you get back up after a setback, you reinforce the belief that you are resilient. Confidence, then, is not the absence of fear or failure. It is the deep-seated knowledge that you can handle whatever comes your way because you have a history of showing up for yourself. Start with small, manageable actions and scale up. These small wins matter because they prove to your brain that you are reliable, and reliability is the root of all confidence. 12. Practicing gratitude for who you are. When was the last time you stopped, not to wish for what you don't have, but to simply acknowledge and appreciate what you already are? We live in a world that relentlessly trains us to see what's missing. Social media, advertising, even casual conversations are often filled with reminders of the gap between where you are and where you think you should be. And while growth is important, here's the paradox. You will never feel truly fulfilled until you learn to be deeply grateful for yourself exactly as you are right now. Gratitude for who you are is not about pretending you're perfect. It's about seeing your worth without needing to constantly earn it. It's about recognizing the silent battles you've fought, the storms you've survived, and the values you've kept intact when it would have been easier to let them go. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Apply this to yourself. The poorest version of you is the one who cannot see their own value. The richest version is the one who can stand alone, look at their reflection, flaws and all, and say, "I am enough." Gratitude for yourself changes the way you live. Without it, you approach life from a place of lack, always chasing, always comparing, always feeling behind. With it, you approach life from a place of abundance, not because you have everything, but because you realize you already are everything you need to begin. Start with the simple act of acknowledgement. Write down 3 things you appreciate about your character every morning. Maybe it's your resilience, your loyalty, or the fact that you've always found a way to get back up. These reminders are not vanity, they're fuel. They strengthen the voice inside you that says, "I am worthy," and quiet the one that says, "I am not enough." This practice teaches you to separate your identity from your mistakes. You are not a single bad decision, just as a tree is not defined by one dead branch. Gratitude shifts your focus to the whole forest of your being, not just the scars on the bark. At the end of the day, everything we have talked about, from building a compassionate inner dialogue to the practice of daily gratitude, comes down to one single, powerful truth. The world will treat you the way you treat yourself. This is not a mystical concept, but a practical reality of human interaction. If you consistently ignore your own needs, so will they. If you repeatedly cross your own boundaries to please others, they will continue to cross them without a second thought. But if you set the standard, if you protect your energy, and if you choose to value yourself above all else, you teach the world exactly how you deserve to be treated. Loving yourself more than anyone else doesn't mean you stop loving others. On the contrary, it means you finally get to love them from a place of strength instead of desperation. It means you no longer chase approval or cling to people who drain you. It means your happiness is built on a foundation that no one can shake, because it comes from within. The Stoics knew that self-respect was the very core of freedom. As Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that mastery begins with self-love, the kind that is disciplined, unwavering, and rooted in gratitude for who you already are. If this message resonated with you, leave a like to help us reach more people who need to strengthen their self-love. In the comments, share one lesson you will take from this guide. Reading about your journeys inspires us to continue. And don't forget to share this video with someone who deserves to be reminded of their own worth. If you aren't yet part of our community, subscribe now and turn on the bell to continue your journey of self-mastery with us. Your journey doesn't end here. In fact, this is just the beginning. To deepen your discipline and turn intention into action, click on one of the videos appearing on your screen now. We have prepared a special playlist on overcoming procrastination and building an unshakable mindset. Keep investing in yourself. We'll see you in the next video.